how's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Hack Slash Sons of Man. This is a really cool hack slash story, and this is Hack Slash taking a firm step into their next big plot arc. We get to see a whole bunch of stuff with Sam and the Black Lamp Society. Pretty cool stuff we're going to be diving into. And I really do like a lot of this stuff, you know, Sam being this killer that is in some way related to this cult. We get a few hints that, like, this guy's probably a slasher, but why doesn't he act like the rest of them? Why does he have a heart? And we're going to be figuring that out. But also, what do these Black Lamp people know about slashers? Turns out quite a bit, and we do get a potential backstory to what slashers are. I mean, Cassie does doubt it initially, but it's pretty interesting stuff, and we'll cover that when we go to the castle and I do an in-depth look at this. But I do like the origin story they propose is really interesting, creative, and unique, and it is something that does make sense. That being said, there is a good bit of exposition in this story. When you find out about the cult, people kind of have to catch you up to speed, and when you look into Sam's backstory, there is a good bit of exposition there as well. So it is a little exposition heavy, but I mean, that's just kind of what these things are going to be when people have to explain to Cassie what's going on. I am really curious, you know, what's going to happen from the Black Lamp in the future, because if this is all true, boy, that is a big piece in the slasher mystery, so looking forward to that. One thing I do have to mention, and again, you'll see this when we switch to the close-up camera, but the art is very different. We're going to get this story arc and the next story arc having this new and unique art style from artist Bryan Baugh. And I will say it's this kind of cartoony art style, and I don't want to say it's bad. It's just so different from what the book had been doing previously. And after I read for a while, I got used to it, and I started to enjoy some aspects of it. So, I don't want to say it's bad, and I think if we were dealing with a more poppy and humorous book, it would have fit a lot better. And I think once I got used to it, I did start to enjoy it. But boy, it is just so different than the hack slash artwork we had got previously that it was a little jarring, and that's why I really do like when series have regular and consistent artists, because sometimes when you change up the artist too much, it again does get a little jarring. And again, this is something you're just going to have to get used to, but just try to accept it and eventually you might come around. I do like, you know, when Cassie's wearing the purple stripes or the way he draws Vlad's mask, it does get kind of cool, but you do have to get used to it. All that being said though, let's switch to the close-up camera for a bit of a deeper analysis. I'll show you guys some of the story and some of the art, and we can, you know, look a little deeper. So without further ado, to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle, taking a closer look at Hack Slash Sons of Man. Right off the bat, we're once again in Omnibus 3. Writer is, as always, Tim Seeley. And the artist this time around is Bryan Baugh. We can see that this takes place over issues 24 and 25. Flip it to the cover and we can see that Sons of Man has a really good character splash cover. Cassie in her camp counselor outfit. We get Pooch, Sam, Lisa, Vlad, and Georgia up there. Sadly, no Chris in this, but I guess this is pretty crowded anyway. This would also be what they would use on the back cover of this omnibus. Anyway, after that, let's get into the story proper. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to break down and analyze a few scenes and talk a bit about what happens. I'll be avoiding the end, so hopefully no major spoilers, but let's dive in. We open up in this nightclub where Sam approaches this guy and takes him to the bathroom to interrogate him. Turns out, this guy used to work for the Black Lamp Society, and Sam needs information to find one of their strongholds. He doesn't want to talk, but Sam is quite persuasive. However, yeah, there's a good reason he didn't want to talk. We see him later, and he is surrounded by these strange dog things. At first I thought they were like big versions of Pooch, but no, they're their own thing, and we'll get to find out their disturbing backstory later in this issue. After a long and awkward car ride, Georgia makes one last attempt to get with Cassie, but she decided her rejection is firm, and Georgia kind of storms off, with Cassie feeling like a jerk for doing that. And yeah, this is ending quite roughly, quite the sad turn of events for these two. However, we quickly move on to the next thing when Sam appears behind them, and I do like that both Cassie and Vlad try to take him out, but it turns out Sam is a pretty tough guy and is able to flip Vlad on his back there. They eventually decide to stop fighting, and Sam will tell a bit of his origin story. It turns out he doesn't remember who he was before and only remembers him being Sam Hain. I wonder if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. I know he's named after the Irish folklore character, which is traditionally pronounced Sa-Wayne, but they call him Sam as a nickname, and, you know, Americans named him, and they have a tendency to mispronounce this word, so I'm guessing it's supposed to be Sam Hain in this context, but we see all the people he's killed while under the control of the cult, and we find out that he would eventually fall in love with this scientist who helped free him. But that's not the biggest bombshell that Sam drops. It turns out he has an understanding as to how slashers came into being. He says that way back in time, there was a group of ancient Greeks who thought that the world was becoming divided into intellectuals that were good people and people that were corrupt and hedonistic, and they went down to Africa and discovered a special plant with kind of zombie resurrection-like properties. They would give this to their devoted followers, and their descendants would be where we get slashers from. Cassie isn't 100% sure if she believes this, but she knows that even if it's not true, the cult is definitely a real thing, and she agrees to go and help Sam stop them. We get a bit of the evil, shadowy figures behind the scenes. They have these strange Venus characters, which are seducing men, and there's of course the doctor that Sam's trying to save, still being forced to work in this lab. They find out it's on an island, and boy, do we know recently that all the terrible stuff happens on an island, and they suit up and get ready to go. However, wouldn't you know it, they're quite quickly surrounded by these things from the beginning, and it is going to turn into quite the tough and hard fight. There's poor Cassie getting her arm bitten there. Let's just say it gets to quite the extreme, overwhelming odds here. It's a pretty cool battle, and again, when you do find out what these things are, it is quite terrible. We do also get a check-in with Chris and Lisa. Turns out the new sheriff is still keeping an eye on him. Maybe she's about to figure something out. And Chris wakes up in the middle of the night to a distressed Lisa. I think that's a pregnancy test. Yeah, considering what they were doing, totally makes sense, and we'll figure out what's going to happen from there. And I won't spoil too much of this conversation, but it does lead to a really interesting talk between him and Pooch. And we also do get a setup for the next plot arc. Turns out something's going to be happening with this woman at the bar, but I don't want to ruin too much of that. Overall, though, this was a really good hack-slash story. It set up a whole lot and told a lot about the lore. Yeah, it was a little exposition heavy, and yeah, the art was a lot more cartoony than we're used to, but overall, a really fun story that had me really engaged, and to find out more about these new enemies and what's going to happen with them, I really wanted to keep reading and find out. Again, yeah, there are faults with it, but it gets to the point where Cassie and Vlad really have their back against a wall with these things, and it gets pretty intense, and it does do a lot with the character moments, resolving a lot of the Georgia stuff that we had been through previously, and moving on to new stuff. Overall, I really did like Sons of Man. Really cool, really intense, really over the top. It's pretty fun. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my hack-slash playlist. If you want to see me talk about a lot of the past plot arcs, you should be able to find them there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.